I don't like Duck Dynasty. I want no part of that show. I don't want to pay any attention to it whatsoever. I don't want to even acknowledge it. But everybody wants to sit there and give this guy shit for what he had said about homosexuality. But people are using the wrong words. They're not quoting him correctly. Yeah, freedom of speech, there's consequences to everything you say. Period. There's no debating that. You say something, someone's going to take it as it being something else. You can't argue that. For instance, he said he doesn't understand homosexuality. That's not all he said, but that's about the conjuncture of what he had said. And then other people started using words like he was calling these people faggots, he was calling them queers. That's misinterpretation. That's a lie. But everyone has their own agenda. Conspiracy theorists would like to tell you that this is a distraction. Everything is a distraction. Everything the government has got their hands in because they've got nothing better to do. When you think of freedom of speech, you think you can go out and say anything you want. Let me pull this up for you here. Don't be deceived. Neither the adulterers, the idolaters, the male prostitutes, the homosexual offenders, the greedy, the drunkards, the slanderers, the swindlers, they won't inherit the kingdom of God. Don't deceive yourself. It's not right. That's a religious aspect, correct? Start with homosexual behavior and just morph out from there, bestiality, sleeping around with this woman and that woman and those men. That I don't understand. Uh, I don't even know where to go with that, says the person who wrote this article. Somehow he took homosexuality, hit up bestiality, then went around to promiscuity, as if homosexuals are the only ones who sleep around freely. This is just more ignorance. Again, I wouldn't call it homophobia, just utter stupidity. And of course, he has to quote the Bible, which is what was there that I read to you before the previous statement. So we've already established this man is religious. Conservatives tend to be religious, but there are also liberals who are religious. And the religion you'll find most in liberals is Seventh day Adventist, because it's not Catholic and because it makes more sense than most religions do. Take the Mormons, for example. So, reading just that little bit to you on this article sent to me by Twisted Clown 888. I think what people are misunderstanding and not grasping is that this man wasn't fired, he was suspended. Most likely until this whole thing blows over, because they know people, which I've explained a bunch of times, that are very simple and quick to trade thought process. 2 weeks ago it was Paul Walker. And then before that it was Miley Cyrus Wrecking Ball. Now it's Duck Dynasty, and next week it's going to be something else. Someone's going to shoot up a school, and then it's going to be about guns. How do I know that's going to happen? Because that's what people do. They make a stink about saying, oh, it's guns' fault, and all this nonsense. And it sickens me to see how simple people are. Freedom of speech is a double-edged sword. You'll slit your own throat and the guy next to you before any real point, any valid point gets put across. You will say something. You're going to take what I'm saying right now. A bunch of you are going to take what I'm saying and saying, "Oh, he's against homosexuality." No, I'm against Duck Dynasty in its entirety. The concept of the show, the whole rednecks in the backyard thing. And now you're going to sit there and say, "Oh, he's against rednecks out in the woods having a good time." No, I'm against stupid television shows. And it's not just redneck shows. It's not just country music television, or GAC. It's the Kardashians, which I was just made aware of a few weeks ago. And it's Jersey Shore, and it's stuff like that, and they actually show you in studies that shows like that make you dumb. They will actually lower your IQ. Shows like the Kardashians and Jersey Shore, and what's that one about the two mothers on? You're on the TV Guide channel. It's these two moms or whatever who are bickering and fighting, and it's always the same stupid shit. Yeah, that will kill your brain cells, and you will never get that back. Never get that back. But everyone wastes times with these shows. And it irritates the piss out of me that people pay attention to things like this when there are bigger things out there. Homosexuality, homophobia are not new. These have been around for, well, at least as far as, this is being made public since the 60s. Most likely before then. And with the whole AIDS scare, and you only get STDs through being gay. But we're still as stupid now as we were then. It's just on a different scale. Okay? It's different grounds, it's a different platform. People are fucking retarded. Our attention span is what I say, 7 seconds, some shit like that. And back in 2001, 2000? Let's call it 2001. It was 10 seconds. And now our attention span's getting shorter. And then you see some of these shows, and you're seeing school grades, and there are more important things to be focusing on, but everyone wants to discuss freedom of speech. Here's my freedom of speech. Humanity, society, people as a whole are stupid. You've got brilliant people out there. You've got smart people out there. You've got people with brilliant minds, people with high IQs. But they're so rare. They really are. And I guess I just don't understand why people haven't figured out what freedom of speech is yet. You have the right to say whatever it is you want, but there are consequences. You want to go out and say, yeah, I'm going to shoot up a school. You've got the right to say that, but you've also just committed a crime. At least enough to be questioned by police. Especially if you're an 8-year-old, they most likely will not charge you with anything. They'll make you go through hours and hours and hours of counseling and not let you play with sharp toys. But you look at Duck Dynasty, and he states his religious belief and quotes the Bible. And this person says in this article constantly, it's ignorance, it's ignorance, it's ignorance. But I'm not seeing something so, oh my god, the man who wrote this article is fucking brilliant. I mean, he's very repetitive and it's redundancy. I mean, you look at, as a private citizen, we're free to say basically anything we want, but as employees of specific individuals or companies, we are not if we value our job security. There is something these protect free speech buffoons flipping out over Robertson's suspension just don't seem to understand. Phil Robertson faces no legal ramifications for his comments, but as a representative of a company, he's held to a different standard where his own personal views, once expressed publicly, do carry consequences, and I feel sorry for the millions of people who are too ignorant to understand the difference. Point made. There is a point made. And it's what I just said. He faces no legal ramifications, meaning he said something how he feels religiously or through just his flat-out opinion or whatever, it doesn't matter. He stated he does not understand homosexuality. That's how he interprets homosexuality. That's his belief on it. And he's not facing any hate crime. A lot of people get upset when there's, and it upsets me too, don't get me wrong, when there's pedophiles that get to stream free on the internet. Granted, these websites where they get to talk freely about wanting to touch little kids is all over the internet, and they're being watched and monitored very closely. Do I agree with what they're discussing? No, but psychology has proven that it's a mental disorder. Pedophilia is a mental disorder. That's not an excuse by any means. Still wrong. But with that in mind, you got to go at it with a different view. You see what I'm saying? You can't just act with violence and like a crime is being committed when none has. It's still a mental disorder that they feel that counseling may or may not help. But before they try that, they're going to load them up with medication. But there are consequences for saying, hey, look, this person over here is a pedophile. There's consequences for things like that. You can say anything you want, but there are consequences. And this person is feeling and like I said, it's a suspension. He's not fired from the show, like a lot of people on Facebook are saying. You are not informed. If you are going to stand for something or against something, be fucking informed. It's not that hard. It's not that difficult to go and do your research instead of just seeing a post on Facebook, clicking like and sharing it. One, you have accomplished nothing. You've changed nothing. And next week it's going to be something else. You depend on Facebook for information. That's sad. And I'm not saying all of you, some of you. I could almost go as far as saying most of you, go and get your information from Facebook and do not dig through your own resources. And if you do, you go with the ones that fit your agenda. Because that's what this boils down to, is an agenda. It's freedom of speech for them now, but when somebody says something against them, it's entirely different and that person needs to be fired. But that, again, is something you see on a Facebook post. You probably didn't get the whole story on it. Why don't people do their research? Why do people have such a hard time grasping that just because somebody says something, one, doesn't make it so, two, it's the freedom of speech that everyone preaches. Juggalos, for instance, they say, I've got the right to do this, that, and the other. And we're on a gang list. There are still consequences for that. The media will say things, and they get to pay the consequences for that if people make them pay the consequences for that. Because the media can say whatever they want. I know when Occupy came out, all they were covering were the bad stories. We took the streets in Oakland, we shut down the ports, and the only thing that was breaking news was the riots. And in the first, I think, 3 weeks or whatever, or in the last 3 weeks, the big news on Fox was a protester sliced a cop's hand open. Not the 88-year-old woman who was beaten and dragged out of her tent. That wasn't covered by Fox News because it doesn't fit their agenda. Because this was supposedly something done by the liberals, by the left wing. Left wing is Democrats, right wing is conservatives, for those who do not understand. You learned something today. And the liberals are no different. They have things that fit their agenda as well. But the other side will cater to that. And it's no different than what you're seeing with Duck Dynasty and the freedom of speech. A lot of people are saying, I'm done watching this show and I'm protesting Annie. Or a lot of people are like, no man, I'm going to rock my Duck Dynasty. Well, that's not going to change anything either. I'm sorry that, I had to be the one to tell you this, but you've changed nothing, you've fixed nothing. It'll take a group of people, which I'm sure will happen, if attention spans weren't so short. Because I feel, in my personal opinion, that if you really wanted to protest this and really wanted to make a big stink about it, you wouldn't be sharing and clicking things on Facebook to try and make a difference, to try and get your point across. You would actually physically go out and do something. But because this will blow over eventually, right now this is where there's a lot of stigma and a lot of attention and a lot of controversy, which people really get into. I like controversy. That's one of the words that, someone puts into a film or into a documentary, chances are I will check it out. But this has become more than controversy. To me, it's become an annoyance. Every time I see the Duck Dynasty thing on Facebook, I go and hide it. I go and push it away and get it out of my life. Because I don't care much for that show. But I just wanted to address to you, the people, that Duck Dynasty and freedom of speech and everything else that's been going on is simply temporary. You will forget about it. You will move on from it. And you will find the next big thing to jump onto. This happened from Columbine with the guns all the way up to the Sandy Hooks and to the Colorado school shooting, all the way to Duck Dynasty, and then you got the conspiracy theorists who say Illuminati, who say this is a big distraction, who say this, that, and the other. Everyone has their agenda. Everyone has their opinions. There are billions of people in this world. Not everyone's going to be able to agree. So let's be adults. Let's accept the consequences for the things that we say. Ignore the things we don't want to hear. And if there's something that really pisses us off, let's do something about it. 2014 is coming around. Let's make this a New Year's resolution.